crying out loud, they had snow cones in the bathroom. Like a vendor had a snow cone while he was taking a dump, and that was the biggest story. I don't know if you remember that. That was one of the years, like it was a 100-loss team, and there was nothing to talk about. And the big thing was there's a snow cone vendor who put his snow cones down while he's taking a dump in the bathroom, and that was the big story.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Lance Cavazos, your official ambassador fun from Cool Bus Houston, coming to you from the Cool Bus Houston show. Today, we have a very special guest on the bus. We have Raheel Ramzanali. Raheel, welcome to the Cool Bus.
Hey, man, thank you. It's an honor to be on the Cool Bus show.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So, for some of the listeners who haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man, so I'm a media professional here in the city of Houston. I've been here since 2007 doing sports radio work. I've had, the fortunate luck to work at ESPN Houston. I've done a podcast with ABC 13, 1560 The Game, which was a startup radio station with radio legends John and Lance. I know you're excited to talk about them. And then right now I'm doing play-by-play for the UFC for their Fury Fighting Championship broadcast, and then doing a daily podcast called CityCast Houston. So, I count my blessings every day, because to get a job in media is hard, but to get multiple jobs is a blessing that I'll never take for granted.
Awesome. I've worked in sports myself, and I know that it's very hard to get a job in sports. So being able to continue that career for many years, especially since 2007, it's pretty awesome. So how did you get involved in your career in sports? How did you start that?
Yeah, so when I was a senior at Clemens High School, my brother was a senior at UT, and he knew he wanted to be a dentist, and he's still a dentist right now, a successful one. He and his partner have 3 locations across the city, and I didn't know what to do, right? As a child of an immigrant, you are really forced into 3 professions: business owner, something medical, or you're gonna become a lawyer / engineer, so another high-profile job. I just like, all right, cool, let's go dentist, right? And let's go do that. And I applied for a scholarship, and the person who was interviewing me knew me, and he's like, you didn't sound too passionate about becoming a dentist. Like, what do you really want to do? And I said, man, I want to work in sports. I want to talk on radio. I want to do TV, because at the time, the way I assimilated with the American culture was through basketball, through football, through watching SportsCenter until 3 in the morning. Yeah, like the good old days, yeah. Right? Like listening to sports radio, listening to John and Lance, Rich Lord and Mark Vandermeer when they had a show. And that's how I assimilated. And I played sports. I was like, I love sports. I knew I wasn't going to make the NBA. Like, that was a pipe dream, right? And I wasn't going to play D1. So I was like, man, I still want to be in sports. So what was the next best thing? And the next best thing is talk sports for a living. So I decided, all right, cool, I'm going to talk sports for a living. And I just went for it and got really lucky. In fact, freshman year I went to UTSA because I got capped, which is, if you're not smart enough to get into UT at the gate, you have to go to one of the satellite schools, have a 3-point something. I had a 4.0 the whole time. And I applied to the radio, television, film school. This is what as an immigrant, I didn't know where to apply for becoming a sports radio host, right? I applied for a radio, television, film school spot. I didn't get in. I had a 4.0 GPA. And I emailed the dean. I was like, hey, what do you mean I didn't get into an RTF program? Radio is in the title. That's where sports radio hosts go, and TV hosts, right? He goes, no, actually, you have to go into the journalism program and go into the broadcast journalism program. So I didn't have anybody to guide me, right? I'm one of the first Pakistanis to do this. So I had this learning curve that I always tell kids, like, hey, make sure you don't apply to the RTF program. That's not it. That's Matthew McConaughey. If you want to direct movies, you go to RTF. Yeah. But it was that love of sports. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to talk sports. So that's how it started.
So a little tidbit I found out about you too, regarding in your sports career, is that you also went to school with Astros sideline reporter Julia Morales.
Yeah.
So has it been pretty cool to see you guys grow together grow together in the sports industry and also individually?
Man, her growth has been way better than my growth, man. She deserves every single thing she gets, man. She's the best. Julia is the nicest person. So even back at UT, we were in the same class. She was always very kind. She was part of the dance team. So, that's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah.
To be on the dance team at Texas, and you're on the sidelines of games, and every time she would walk in, of course, I'd be like, that's a celebrity. Like, I just saw you on the sidelines. but she's always been so cool and normal. And when she finally moved here to Houston for that role, it was during a dark time of the Houston Astros, right? Like nobody was watching the games because of the contract dispute. The team wasn't good. Like for crying out loud, they had snow cones in the bathroom. Like a vendor had a snow cone while he was taking a dump, and that was the biggest story. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I don't remember.
That was one of the years, like it was a 100-loss team, and there was nothing to talk about. And the big thing was there's a snow cone vendor who put his snow cones down while he's taking a dump in the bathroom, and that was the big story, and not Altuve, because like no one cared.
Right.
But then when the team got better and more people started watching because of the contracts were figured out, Julia, just her star took off, right? And it was so awesome to see, and she's the best, and to see what her and Matt have accomplished as parents as well is so cool, man. It's the best feeling to see your friends succeed, and not only professionally but off the field as well. It's great.
Every episode we try to go visit a different section of Houston. Today we're in the Harwin district. Yeah. Tell us a bit about why you wanted to come to Harwin.
Yeah, so Harwin is special to me. So being an immigrant, my family moved here to Houston from Karachi, Pakistan in 1990. So it was my dad, my mom, my older brother, my older sister, and then me. And then later on they had one more kid in 1991. So we were 4 kids, 2 adults in a small apartment in A-Leaf, and the business that supplied all of this, money was the store on Harwin, Perfume Time, which is my dad's store. And I really wanted to bring everyone out here just so they could see how important the Harwin district is, not only to the city, but also to so many immigrants that have moved here, because this is, first businesses for a lot of families. And from that business, they start other things and they become part of the success that is the city of Houston. And I've also spent many weekends here working for my dad, right? My dad was old school in that he wouldn't just give me money. He would say, hey, there's 4 kids. We don't have that much money. If you want money to go buy shoes, if you want money to go eat out and hang out with your friends, you're gonna have to come work for me. So every Sunday I would be here working, from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. and I would get $30. And that was so much money back then for me. But it taught me the values of what it takes to succeed, what it takes to run a business. So that's why I wanted everyone to see what this is. And my story is replicated hundreds of times with all the businesses here and all the kids that have benefited from their parents taking a risk and starting a business as immigrants here.
I remember coming to Harwin back when I was in high school. Growing up in Humble, we came down to Harwin. I actually came down here to try to buy some rims at one point. So I haven't been here since high school actually. So
it's crazy. There's different districts in Harwin, right? You go towards Fondren and you've got the rims. And a funny story, my senior year of college, I finally saved enough money to get a Honda Accord Coupe, and I was so pumped for it. And the first thing I did, I came down here and I put a system in my car. So I put a 12-inch sub, and that was like the best feeling ever. And of course, it was on Harwin. My dad cut a deal with the guy that he knew, and he threw in some perfume for him. So Harwin's is such an essential part of my life, but also other Houstonians like yourself, right? Like you have a memory. And I think it's making a resurgence right now where people understand, like, hey, there's a lot of cool things here, and you can get stuff that's wholesale price, so why not come down here and give these local businesses a chance?
So one of the things I also really wanted to discuss was your involvement with CityCast Houston.
Yeah.
It's a new podcast you guys have been working on here for quite a while now, actually. But tell me a little bit about CityCast Houston.
Yeah, so I just joined CityCast Houston in March of 2023, and they've been doing it since 2021. And CityCast Houston is all about making sure Houstonians are up to date on what's happening in their city, right? It's all about the city. And that city goes out to the sprawls, right? So Sugar Land, Richmond, the Woodlands, Cypress, like we're all this one big city. I know that it's Houston that gets all the love, but we're all Houston, right? So I've been fortunate to join this team and become the host and talk about important topics like what the hell's happening at Harris County jails, right? Like inmates are dying because they're overpopulated. Those are serious stories. To fun stuff. Like, hey man, what's the best coffee shop around here? What are the best burgers, right? I know Burger Bodega, but like talking about these cool things that are happening, but at the same time, making sure Houstonians are plugged into what really matters as well. So yeah, we're covering important topics that matter to Houstonians and make them feel more connected to the city, right? And it's a daily podcast. You wake up, you listen to it, 15 to 20 minutes, you get on with your day, and I hope, you learn something new. And that's what I always say at the end of the podcast. I hope you learn something new about our city, about what's going on.
So what's it been like covering like the city that you grew up in? Like you're actually covering this place that you grew up in, and now you're telling the world about Houston. How's that feel?
Man, it's been awesome. I've been doing that ever since I've been on sports radio. Like sports is a big part of what I did on sports radio, but I like being involved in the city, going to new places, trying new things, going to concerts, wherever it be. And I would always talk about that. So now just getting to do this on a podcast and having a team behind me, it's so much fun and it's so exciting, right? Because again, I'm out and about in the city. And again, whether that be inside the loop or out in one of the suburbs, I'm experiencing these things and I want more people to experience the city. So learn to love your city more, right? We can all say H-Town till I drown and H-Town proud and all that stuff. But until you go and support these local businesses, whether it be here in Harwin or going down to Mahatma Gandhi district or going to one of the suburbs, like be about it, right? And I get to be about it. And I hope you guys do as well when you listen.
Awesome. What's been, or who would you say has been your favorite guest you've interviewed or the most fun guest you've interviewed?
Oh man. So I've been lucky to interview some cool sports guests, George Foreman, Wade Phillips, but interviewing my friends has been like the best. So, anybody from Channel 13, Pooja Lodia, Travis Herzog, like these people I know, and getting them on the podcast, because usually on the news broadcast, you don't have that much time to get your personality across. So I love that listeners get to meet them and spend time with them on our podcast, and they get to learn like what drives these people that are giving the news, right? So it's been so cool to interview just my friends and like getting them that time to explain who they are.
So you also mentioned that you are involved with the Roughnecks and the Sabercats. Have you got any like funny stories about interacting with the players or the fans at one of those games that you'd like to share?
Man, okay, so I'll go back to my reporting days before I get to the Roughnecks or the Sabercats. The funniest story and the best story that I have is when I was a young reporter in 2008. The Lakers were in town playing the Houston Rockets in a regular season game. I'm a huge Kobe fan. Like many, guys our age, like I love Kobe, and Kobe was our guy. And I love Jordan too, so I don't want to get into this debate, but Kobe, you just love watching him. So the first time I actually got to cover him, I was like on cloud nine. I'm like, oh my God, this is Kobe Bryant in the flesh. So I finally mustered up enough courage to ask him a question. And I remember asking him, I was like, hey, Shane Battier has always been a defensive pest. Do you take that challenge on when you get to play against Shane? And he said, bro, and he called me bro. And that was the best moment ever. And I actually have a soundbite. We made a remix about it. I listened to it. The day when Kobe and Gigi passed away, the first thing I did was I went back and listened to that, right? And I was like, man, Kobe Bryant called me bro. And I actually got one of his wristbands and his rubber bands as well. Like they hooked me up with that. So it was cool, man. Just like those are kind of stories, but some funny stories. Man, just like being on a sideline for an XFL game, you have no filter. You can say whatever you want. And I remember the first time they tried that, we were doing run-throughs and like teams were playing live games. They had this overtime format where both teams would be on the field together. And they wanted the sideline host to like commentate on this on the in-stadium speaker. So that means that players can hear this. So I'm over there like, oh man, that was a bad, that was a bad turnover there. What do you think about this, player X? And the player X would be like, yeah, you know what, we just forced that and I'm like, oh my God. Then the opposing team is right across them, so they're talking crap. Oh, man. And I'm in the middle of this, and they're yelling at me, and I'm like, oh my God. So I turn to my producer and I go, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you can be having an in-stadium host interviewing both teams during the most important part of the game, which is overtime. So ever since then, they haven't done that, and that was because of me. I was like, hey, I think I'm about to get like run over here, so let's stop this right now.
All right, so Raheel, you also mentioned that you have covered Fury fighting. Do you do any fighting yourself?
So I train in jiu-jitsu and kickboxing as well, but nothing like those guys are doing. I just do it just so I can keep up with what's happening, stay in shape, and then, you know, be able to train my daughter as well. So I train my 8-year-old in boxing, so she has those skills as well, right, to defend herself. So I love it. I just think everyone should go take a jiu-jitsu class because it's such an important art to learn, not only to defend yourself, but also to learn that there are dudes out there that look like they can't fight that will mop the floor with you.
We like to ask our guests some rapid fire questions, our rapid fire segment of the show. So we got some fun questions here. So you ready?
I think I am, man. I hope I'm fast enough.
Let's go. So your favorite restaurant in Houston?
Aga's, which is the best South Asian restaurant you can eat at.
Favorite Houston team?
Ooh, man, that's tough. It's got to be the Astros, right? H-Town, baby.
What's your favorite sport to cover?
Oh, basketball.
Best highway in Houston?
Ooh, none of them. They all suck. No. I'm gonna say the stretch of I-10 when you get out of like right before Sealy, there's a stretch that turns to 2 lanes, and you can like really go 80, 85 and ramp it up because there's traffic otherwise. That's my favorite out one, and then I'll say 59 heading towards Sugarland because I've driven that thousands of times. I would say that one as well.
So worst highway in Houston?
Worst highway? Oh, West Park. Does West Park count? I know it's not a highway, it's a tollway, but you sit in traffic, and the kicker is you have to pay money to sit in traffic.
Favorite Houston musician?
Oh, Krungbin.
So you went to the University of Texas, I went to Texas A&M. What would you say is your favorite UT A&M rivalry moment when you were in school? And all of the above.
The kick, right? The kick has to be one of the top one. Yeah. The kick, right? The final moment before we renew the rivalry, which is about damn time. But my favorite moment was when my best friend David Nuno, who works for Texags, which I know you're familiar with Billy Lucci and those guys, when he had twin boys, my favorite moment was walking into that room and bringing a UT cap for one and a Texas A&M cap for the other. And he kept that Texas cap. He's like, just in case they get a scholarship or something. But that's my favorite moment of that rivalry.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our rapid fire questions, so appreciate it.
Hey, I survived.
I hope it wasn't too tough on you.
Man, that was kind of tough.
Good deal. Well, let's go check out Harwin, see who we got going on.
Let's go, man.
All right.